Good afternoon, and my name is Soneja Holloway, and my topic today for this oral report will be the Stationers' Company and the freedom of expression in England from 1557 to the present, and its relevance to the Bill of Rights. In my introduction, I have two main points. The main purpose of this oral report is to see how the Stationers' Company was established in England and the development of the penny press and its significance to the freedom of speech, freedom of expression. You will hear both terms throughout this presentation, but they are interchangeable. My second point in this paper, there are serious restrictions to this freedom of speech or expression. You cannot use slander, any type of obscenity or defamation. This is a human right. That means if you're human, no matter what, you qualify for this right of freedom of expression and freedom of speech. You should not be hindered by what you believe. So, this human right is now a human rights document set in England called the Bill of Rights. And it was established around 1689. We're moving into the body of this presentation. In 1557, the Stationers' Guild received a royal charter of incorporation, which gave them an even greater authority over the trade. As a result of this charter, nobody could print anything for sale within the kingdom unless he was a member of the Stationers' community or company, unless he was exempt through privilege or patent. This gave the government considerable influence over the type of books which could be printed and published. As for an example, the Queen of Mary, when royal proclamations prevented the publishing of Protestant or other profane books. This came from the Publishers Broadcasting Network. In 1689, intellectual property law at that time was driven not by interest in creation or creativity or innovation, but rather by political and religious motivations. One example of this would be the 1556 establishment of the Stationers' Company's control in England was largely intended to help limit the Protestant Reformation movement's power. By putting the entire printing industry in the control of this company, the government and church could prevent the broadcasting of ideas. The Stationers' Company is a livery company of the City of England, or in London, forgive me. It has had a corporate existence under different names for over 600 years. Originally set up in 1403 from the amalgamation of the Brotherhood of Manuscript Producers and Brotherhood of the Craft of Writers and Text Letters. It was a bookseller's dream, who occupied and sold manuscript books and writing materials, and who decorated and illuminated them. Everybody carrying any business in the city of London connected with the book trade was required to become members of the craft and thus be considerable influence over fixing and controlling the customs of this trade. In 1833, the penny press became a phenomenon in New York, where Benjamin Day, the publisher of the New York Sun, used new technologies, increased ad revenues, and clever editorial choices to create the first newspaper specifically designed for the common man and woman. And this daily newspaper only cost a penny. That's where the name penny press comes from. By 1841, there were two more dailies, the New York Herald and the New York Tribune, that also only cost a penny. Featuring sensational reporting, these newspapers became vastly popular. They soon found their perfect subject in the U.S. Mexican War, and the war became the first to be covered widely by newspapers. Many editorial writers of the penny press, including Brooklyn Eagle editorial Walt Whitman, used their newspapers as soapboxes to drum up support for the war. This guild was incorporated as the Company of Stationers of London by the Royal Charter granted by Philip of Spain and Mary Tudor, May 4th, 1557. The significance of a charter at that time could be appreciated when we recognize that in the intervening century of a half sense of the formation of the guild, two shocks had marked the beginning of our modern world. First, the introduction of printing into England in 1476 made it possible to produce books for a mass lay audience. Secondly, the Reformation brought in new ways of thinking. As in all good business, there was something in it for both sides, the Crown and the Stationers' Company. While the company feared the opportunity of for piracy, that mass production offered the charter in effect provided the Crown with an agent, as Mary realized that previous attempts to impose royal control on every new publication had failed. The company was expected to find a way to stem the constant flow of sedation and heretical books. This could be dangerous territory. The Stationers' Charter was granted by Catholic Queen, but its confirmation 2 years later was by Protestant Elizabeth. Moving into the conclusion of this topic, against such alarming power, it is not surprising that the native popular culture of America and the ethnic traditions of its immigrants could survive only in subcultures or in areas that the new culture judged to be backward or undeveloped and therefore unprofitable or penetration by mass media. In the early 20th century, folklorists seeking the remains of the old popular culture found them in the valleys, Appalachia, or the cattle ranges, the American West, in ethnic and racial ghettos, in prisons, and among those who were considered outcasts of society. The American daily newspaper emerged from those 2 decades as the undisputed go-between and generator of American popular culture, and it occupied this position until the arrival of the commercial broadcasting in the 1920s that forced the press to share its power with the electronic radio. After 1950, both newspaper and radio would stand side by side as television assumed the dominant role in setting the American culture agenda. Even so, the final 2 decades of the 19th century remain a particularly significant period for the median historians and students of popular culture. For it is in this brief span of years that we can perceive the emergence of authentic mass media and the profound, if not irreversible, effects of its phenomenon on the future course of popular culture in America. Newspapers thrived into the mid-20th century, but with the advent of the radio and the television, newspaper circulation began a slow but steady decline. This decline has only been hastened by the advent of the internet. In the early years of the 20th century, have seen the newspaper industry enter a kind of death spiral, with layoffs, bankruptcies, and even the total shutdown of some publications being seen nationwide. Still, even in the age of 24/7 Cable news and thousands of websites and newspapers maintain their status as the best source of in-depth and investigative news coverage. The value of newspaper journalism is perhaps best demonstrated by the Watergate scandal, in which two reporters, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, did a series of investigative articles about corruption and the underhanding doings in the Nixon White House. Their stories, along with ones done by others, publications led to Nixon's resignation. The future of print journalism, as the industry remains unclear. On the internet, blogging about current events has become enormously popular, but critics charge that most blogs are filled with gossip and opinions, not really reporting. There are hopeful signs online. Some websites are returning to old school journalism, such as voiceofsandiego.org, which highlights investigative reporting, and globepost.com, which focuses on foreign news. But while the quality of print journalism remains high, it's clear that the newspapers as an industry must find a new business model in order to survive well into the 21st century. I thank you for listening to this oral report, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I thank you. Have a good day.